Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. Now, I haven't covered a story like this in a minute, but I wanted to chime in on this one because of the horrendous nature of this story. This is the story of a video that shows a 76-year-old woman being thrown to the ground outside of her home by police. It appears that there was an officer already there, and he seemed to have had things under control already. But an officer who just merely arrived on the scene, didn't assess anything, didn't ask any questions. He grabs the old woman and throws her to the ground.
The arrest of 76-year-old Rena Mellerson happened Friday afternoon at her house in Gwynn Oak in Baltimore County. Police had gone there looking for her granddaughter. The video shows one officer in the doorway when another officer arrives and runs to the house. Mellerson was thrown to the ground.
She doesn't even have a moving violation.
Barbara Mellerson is Rena Mellerson's daughter.
And for her to go through something like this, it's ridiculous. And every time she thinks about it, she starts shaking. I had to take my mother to the hospital.
Rena Mellerson was not seriously hurt. She was handcuffed, arrested, and taken into custody. Neighbors who saw the arrest could be heard questioning the use of force.
Lady can barely walk and you slam her like that.
Officers said Mellerson interfered with the arrest of her granddaughter on a charge of disorderly conduct. That incident took place a short time earlier at a different location. There, police said the granddaughter cursed at them and caused a scene, but they did not arrest her at that time, saying they didn't see her leave. Charging documents reveal one officer used MVA records to track her to her grandmother's house.
They tracked her down like she was a fugitive.
Officers made no mention of having an arrest warrant for the granddaughter. An officer used pepper spray and tasers inside Rena Mellerson's house, saying her granddaughter had moved toward him in what he called an aggressive manner. His foot was caught in a door. The granddaughter, Sierra Floyd, was also arrested. By the time Rena Mellerson was taken from her home, 6 officers surrounded her.
Now, apparently, this is because her granddaughter was said to have mouthed off at police. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just read some of this article here, and then I'll get right back into it. It says officers with the Baltimore County Police Department are being criticized after a dramatic arrest of a 76-year-old woman. The controversy rose after video showed an officer throwing the woman to the ground. The arrest of 76-year-old Renee Mellerson happened Friday afternoon at her house in Gwynn Oak, Baltimore County. Police had gone there looking for her granddaughter. The video shows one officer in the doorway when another officer arrives and runs to the house and throws her to the ground. Like I said before, he didn't assess anything, didn't ask any questions. He just arrived there and threw her to the ground. She doesn't even have a moving violation, her daughter said. And for her to go through something like this is ridiculous. And every time she thinks about it, she starts shaking. I had to take my mother to the hospital. Okay, I can imagine how she's feeling. She's shaking because she's like, why did my mother have to go through something like this? Officers said that Mellerson interfered with the arrest of her granddaughter on a charge of disorderly conduct. Now, let me interject right here. What do you mean interfered? What do you mean? Was she talking to you or saying, what is this about? Did she put her hands on you? The word interfered is so broad at this point, you have no idea what they mean by interfering. She could have merely been asking questions as to why they were trying to arrest her granddaughter. Now, they're saying disorderly conduct. So let me get a little bit more into the article so you can see where I'm going to go with this. It says that incident took place a short time earlier at a different location. Their police said the granddaughter cursed at them and caused a scene. but they didn't arrest her at the time, saying that they didn't see her leave. Charging documents reveal one officer used MVA records to track her to her grandmother's house. They tracked her down like she was a fugitive, said Barbara, which is the daughter. Officers made no mention of having an arrest warrant for the granddaughter. So they just go against their own rules where you have to have an arrest warrant. But when it comes to Black people, I guess that law doesn't apply. And so what I wanted to say about all of this is they are breaking the law by trying to enforce the law. No warrant. And I want to back up to where they say she cursed at them and caused a scene. Cursed at them and caused a scene. I want to talk about that real quick. How many videos have we seen of white women who are in the police officer's face, cursing, yelling, screaming, calling them out their names, belittling them? They make no arrest. Now, what I want to say about that as well is most of us are beginning to understand that we are in a land that is not fair, that white women can do those kinds of things. Black people need to realize that you cannot do that. Now, I'm in no way blaming the victim here. I am in no way blaming her. I'm trying to make a point here. The point is, when you know, have seen, and have observed that they are going to be this way, don't deal with them on that level of immaturity by cussing at the police officer. That, in my opinion, was not enough for them to do what they did to this grandmother. In my opinion, also because of how they deal with their own, not even wanting to raise their voice or lift a hand at a white woman who's in their face yelling, screaming, and cursing. They don't charge her with disorderly conduct. As a matter of fact, many times they just get in their vehicle and just leave, or they simply walk away. Now, they are going to have to answer for that hypocrisy to the one that they call God. They call him God. They claim to believe in him. They claim to be Christians, many of them. And they don't see anything wrong with what I'm talking about in terms of how they deal with white people and how they deal with Black people. They don't see that it's anything wrong with allowing a white woman to curse at them, hit them, push them, punch them, and do all of this. No arrest, no raising of the voice, no apprehension. But with an elderly Black woman, almost 80 years old, they don't see a difference in allowing the white woman to do what she does. But this Black woman, this elderly senior Black woman, it's okay to take her down violently to the ground. That is what you call a reprobate, when they don't see the difference, when they think it's okay to excuse this one and not this one. That is that perpetual hatred that we talk about in the Bible. It was prophesied that they would be this way. So those of you who don't understand or don't believe the Bible is unfolding right before your eyes. It says clearly that these other nations were going to hate us for no reason, and that they would have a perpetual hatred that would burn in them forever. Some of you are always trying to figure out, why do they hate us? Why? And you don't necessarily ascribe to what the Bible says. What other explanation can you give for this even being allowed other than prophecy being fulfilled? They do this, and the scripture also says, the Bible also says, they will slay us or kill us and find themselves not guilty. What about that prophecy do you not understand? Because we are seeing it happen. They will kill and find themselves. Notice it said find themselves. In other words, the system that they run and operate will exonerate them. As a matter of fact, it will say, look, oh, you've done nothing wrong. That was a justified killing. The old lady should have shut her mouth and sat down. Now, what if they broke her hip or broke her arm? 9 times out of 10, we have seen so many times where it will be called or labeled as a justified takedown. Even though this old lady is harmless, doing nothing at all, in their minds, they're saying, how dare you rise up against us? How dare you try to defend your granddaughter? How dare you try to ask any questions about why we're here to arrest her for cursing at us and hurting our feelings? Never mind the white woman that we will allow to do this. Never mind the videos that you've actually heard us say, oh, you're not Black. That's why we wouldn't shoot you. Remember that video where a white woman said she was afraid during a traffic stop to get out of the vehicle. And the officer told us, you don't have to be afraid. You're white. We only do this to black people. So don't think that they don't know. Some of them try to pretend like that they don't know that there is a deficiency in how they treat us. Some of them try to pretend like all is well and all is even. There is absolutely nothing we can do to change their minds and hearts toward us. Nothing at all. As a matter of fact, they don't even like to hear us talking about these things. How dare you talk about how wicked we treat you? N-word, how dare you even speak on these things? But one thing that I can say, since they believe in the Bible, then they need to understand that there are consequences. We may not be able to deal with them on a certain level, but the God, as they call him, the God they claim to serve, he says, you will reap what you sow, and that vengeance belongs to him. Many of them like to quote that scripture, but I don't think they believe that it applies to them because of this perpetual hatred that is burning within them. That hatred has blinded their minds to the point where they can't even sympathize. They don't even care. They are happy to do these things. They want to do these things. Now, some of them will sit back and they'll say, man, I can't believe why did he take that old lady down like that? Why are you bringing attention to us like this? But that's as far as they take it. They won't step forward and say, look, comrade, you didn't have to do that. Why would you put your hands on this? They will stand by and watch it happen. Now, I was surprised at one instant where there was an officer who was at a school and a young black, I think she was 11 years old, black girl, was trying to get out of the building, and she was waiting for her mom to come and get her or whatever. And she brushed past the principal. She didn't push him. She didn't put her hands on him. She squeezed past him through the door, and the officer came after her like a raging bull, got all in her face, slammed her to the ground, was yelling at her. And as the school officials were watching, one of them said, I'm not going to let you sit here and hurt this girl. This was a white guy. He says, officer, you don't need to be doing this. You don't need to do this. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to let you do this to this young girl. Then the officer started to calm down because someone put him in check. But you see that rage that they have in them on the 11-year-old child. It takes an extreme amount of hatred and rage for a grown man to do this kind of mess to a child. I remember when we were kids growing up, and my brother used to have these two white friends that lived up the street from us. He would play with them all the time. They were like buddies. But something happened where my brother came running home crying because their dad put his measly paws on my brother. And so my stepfather went down there to handle his business. And he didn't go empty-handed, if you know what I mean. And he and this man got into it. My mother had to come and literally just drag my stepfather home to keep him from going to jail. Now, because this incident happened in Detroit, he had a gun. He didn't shoot the guy, but he was threatening to do it. He told him, you better not put your cotton-picking hands back on my son again. And so there were some officers that got there to the scene. They were black officers. And when my mom said it wasn't a gun, it was a baseball bat. Okay, that was back then. She said that the officers just said, okay, fine, whatever. You all just go back to your house and let them stay there and blah, blah, blah. Now, these officers, they understood the situation. They understood that this white man was literally going to get away with putting his hands on a then 12-year-old, but neither were they going to take my stepfather to jail for pulling out a weapon. They're like, look, we're not going to arrest this guy for whatever reason, because they probably knew it wouldn't have stuck, okay? But they didn't arrest my stepfather either. Now, had there been a white officer, they would have said, job well done to Billy Bob, to the father of the white kids, for putting his hands on a minor, for hurting my brother. They would have allowed him to go away, but they would have tried to use the weapon thing against my stepfather and take him to jail for pulling out a weapon. And that's how the mind of a reprobate works. They didn't see anything wrong with this grown man putting his hands on a child. They wouldn't have seen anything wrong with it. But you pulling out this weapon, even though you didn't discharge it, you only threatened with it, for the protection of your son, that's them saying, look, you're not even allowed to protect yourself. So if you even try, you're going to jail. That is the wickedness of a reprobate. The wickedness of a reprobate. But the God they claim to serve, they are going to be visited by him, and they're not going to understand. They're going to say, but, is it going to be, it's too late for all of that. You were happy in your wickedness. You allowed it to take hold of you and just run throughout your body. So now here are the consequences of that wickedness that you would not bring in check. You wouldn't rein it in. You didn't see anything wrong with the things that you did, throwing this 76-year-old woman to the ground because her granddaughter cursed at you and made you feel bad. And like I said before, the thing that you have allowed white women to do time and time again, some of them have even pushed you, put their hands on you, and you say and do nothing. There was even an incident someone shared with me the other day where this white guy, he didn't just go stark raving mad with a knife. He charged at this officer full force. And they were like, put the knife down, put it down. Come on, man. We don't want to hurt you, bro. We don't want to hurt you. Put the knife down. I mean, I don't know how long that standoff took, but these cops with their weapons drawn, and one even said, use unlethal force. Use your taser, saying that to the other officer. And this man has a knife. How many times have black men not had anything, no weapon of any kind, only their blackness? Now, any white person who's listening to this, I want you to explain to me in the comment section how and why you think all of this is fair. And tell me why you think I'm wrong for pointing out the obvious. You don't have to call me racist. You all do that enough. I'm not moved by it. It doesn't prove that I'm racist because I'm talking about the nonsense that you all do. Come on now. It proves that you're a reprobate if you can't tell the difference in what we're talking about. If you can honestly, any white person who's going to watch this video, let's switch this around. Let's say an Arab man, police officer, arrives at a scene of a white 76-year-old woman, an Arab, or a black, or an Asian, Chinese. Any one of those three groups shows up at the house of a 76-year-old white woman. Don't ask any questions, and they just slam her violently to the ground. You tell me that you would be okay with that. Be honest with yourself. Would you be okay with that? If you're not okay with an Arab man slamming a 76-year-old white woman to the ground, or a black man slamming a 76-year-old white woman to the ground, or a Latino man, or a Chinese man, if you're not okay with one of them slamming a 76-year-old white woman to the ground, then why the heck are you okay with them doing, a white man doing that to anybody else, doing that to a black person? Explain to me why. If all of the circumstances were the same, if your mother or your grandmother's granddaughter, being a white girl, merely cursed at police officers, and the grandmother had questions as to why this was happening, explain to me why you think you have a right to be upset and offended by it, but we don't. Help me understand it. If you can't help me understand it, if you think it's okay with what these officers did, then chances are you are just a hopeless reprobate. It is what it is. Okay, I'm out of here. Shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.